Hi there, and welcome back to Viewpoint Christian Academy, where our mission is to empower parents for Christian education. Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Mary Ellen Siegler of Massachusetts Family Institute. Mary Ellen has a lot of expertise in understanding a lot of the things that are going on behind the scenes in public education, particularly in the state of Massachusetts right now, in regards to comprehensive sexuality education and social emotional learning. If you didn't yet see part 1, you need to go back and check it out. Some fantastic information. Well, as we jump into part 2, let me just remind you that some of the things that are covered in these videos are sensitive. And mom and dad, you may want to be aware of that if you're listening and your children are present. Or if you're a young person listening, you may want to stop for a minute and go check with mom and dad on this particular video and the concepts and things that will be talked about here. But in part 2, get ready for some really good practical advice. Mary Ellen is going to give you some real good tips and tricks to help you fulfill your godly biblical mandate to train up your child in the way that they should go, in particular in this area as you navigate through all the complexities that our world is throwing at our young people right now. She's going to give some real good advice, some real good wisdom, and she's even going to give some things, suggestions as to what the church can do. So pay attention and really learn from this as you listen to part 2 of addressing the sexualization of our children. Let me ask you this question. What are some good probing questions that a parent could ask that might give some indication that their child has been exposed to some of this teaching or is maybe even leaning towards some of this worldview? What could they ask them that they could see, oh yeah, they have been learning this or they're being influenced in this way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important when children are younger, you don't want to introduce something that maybe they haven't thought of yet, right? So it's really good to start from a biblical perspective. So for instance, God created people to be males and females. What kinds of things do you like about being a boy? Or what kinds of things do you like about being a girl? What kinds of things have you heard or learned in school about what it means to be a boy or a girl? Uh-huh. So, if you start from that biblical perspective and you just start a conversation and ask them questions about themselves, kids love it when you engage them and ask them questions about themselves. So, and then you can connect that you can lead, ask those leading questions, and then they'll start opening up to you about some things that they've learned in school. And I will tell you that young children will hear things, and because they don't necessarily have the maturity yet, they're developmentally, they're not mature enough, they may not even know that they need to mention something to you that they've heard. But they may have heard a message, internalized it, and it's doing its inner work, and they don't even realize that it's maybe challenging something that you taught them. So it's really important to have lots of great conversations with your kids about these things. Or, you can do the same thing about families. God's design for families is that marriage is between one man and one woman for life. And that after a man and woman get married, God blesses them with children. Do you have any friends or teachers in school that talk about different kinds of families? What kinds of families do they talk about? What do they say about them? And then you can use that as a jumping off point. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of great material out there that can help you. Focus on the Family has a lot of good material and resources for parents. You can go to christianbook.com. There's also some books there. But what we did in our family is we did use some of those books, but we just used the Bible. We just opened up the Bible, right? Not a radical concept, right? To just use the Bible. Yeah. But we just opened up the Bible and we, just taught the kids God's design
Amen.
for sex and marriage and male and female. And that was the jumping off point. And then you can use other materials that are helpful and that support that biblical worldview. So,
Excellent. Well, how about like, what if they're older and perhaps they have been introduced to some of these concepts? You find out that they were in a CSE class, or I know in Worcester, city of Worcester right now, it's a big deal. I know the Massachusetts Family Institute has worked really hard in conjunction with some churches there, and I think over 3,000, right, have opted out.
Yes,
of that,
3,000 students have been opted out,
which is phenomenal. Of course, there's tens of thousands. So there are still a lot of kids being exposed to that, and like you said, it's in the lunchroom too because they're going to talk about it, etc.
Right, right.
What might a parent look for or question, or you know what I mean? Even if they did opt out, let's say a parent consciously opted out, either by filling out the form and saying you're not going to that class, or they took their kid completely out of the school, which is the ideal opt out. What kind of probing might a parent want to do in that regard to find out, or would you say, less probing and more just reinforcing the right? Maybe that's the direction that you're thinking. I'm very interested to hear what you say on that.
Yeah, so there are ways to level that same conversation I was just explaining that you can have with younger students, and you can just level that for older students as well. Yeah. And you're going to start picking up on things by little things that maybe your children will say. Even if say they're starting to listen to a musical artist who is known to promote, diverse sexualities, that's a good conversation. Use that to have that conversation. What do you think about the influence of music? Is this musician, is this artist promoting an idea that's against God's design? Like, let's talk about that. So, we need to talk about everything all the time. So, and the dinner table is a good place to do that. So we would have just lots of robust conversation and debate even sometimes around the Siegler dinner table, especially when the kids were older and we were, discussing current events or issues. And really, all you need to do to start a conversation with older kids, teens, middle school, and high school, is just pull something out of the headlines. There's always something in the headlines about say the LGBT agenda, for instance. So that's, it's an issue of our time. So they're being exposed to plenty of content if they're going to school, and even their friends. And I'm sad to say, even in the Christian community, people are struggling with this, and the church is struggling with how to address it and to remain true to the faith, but to also to be compassionate and caring, and to reach out to people and to come alongside them. So these are all really great conversation starters with your kids that you can have.
Yeah, no, that's great. Dinner table is always a great place to have some great conversations. And it really comes down to, of course, the most important factor here is not just is mom and dad stepping up and being as taking that leadership role and probing those questions and having those discussions. And instead of letting the school or the state take that role, moms and dads must take that role. Now, this is kind of a thought that I had on the side. A lot of times in my own home, it's kind of close to our heart because we have two sons with autism, and but we have been committed to providing them a Christian education. And I think that they need it just as much as, even though they might have what we might call a special need, it's still the same human needs, just a greater need. And I'm wondering if you know of any information or have heard reports of this kind of teaching also being promoted amongst those with what we might refer to as special needs, students with
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and autistic children are particularly vulnerable in the public school system. Parents find themselves really between a rock and a hard place because they need extra services to help their child with their disability or their special need. Yeah. And a lot of Christian schools are just not equipped. And a lot of parents feel just too overwhelmed even to address all of their, special needs, even in the home. And so they reach out, they participate in the public school system because the public school system provides resources. But what I'm seeing now is that particularly around the transgender issue, autistic children are vulnerable because they tend to think so literally. And so, and they can become very rigid and, kind of stuck on, they can attach themselves to an idea and kind of become rigid in that. And so if I was helping one family address this issue with an autistic child. And this is exactly what happened. So many autistic children are just really bright and brilliant. They have just a brilliant minds. And so they'll go online and they'll research and they'll read. And then, there's all of this information that's being put out to young people around the issue of transgenderism, for instance, that looks well researched on the surface, right? So they kind of can attach themselves to these ideas. And so, we're finding, particularly with the transgender issue, that autistic children are particularly vulnerable. So it's just something to be aware of. Be on top of.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for addressing that. And I understand exactly what you're saying. There are a lot of families that struggle. What should I do? Because I don't feel equipped to handle this at home. It's hard to find a Christian school that would be equipped to handle that. And so sometimes parents feel trapped.
Now, Homeschool Legal Defense Association has some really great resources available on their website for homeschooling children with special needs.
Awesome.
So I recommend that parents, take a look at what they have. And even if you don't fully homeschool, but maybe you do certain things with them at home if you still have them in school. But maybe, if you go through the information, it might empower some parents to even try to homeschool. Yeah,
I know. I did do a video series a couple months ago on this idea, and my wife and I talked to some other pastors who have autistic children that have decided we got to homeschool. We're going to put them in school or homeschool. And I think a common theme was that services are needed sometimes, but my wife and these others that I talked to seemed to be leaning towards the idea that spirit was more important even than services. And it is so vital and so important. And so I would encourage, just speaking from my own, and I don't mean to go off on a rabbit trail here, but speaking from my own experience, that this is huge. And these kids need this too. And that is disturbing too, that there would be this even almost this vulnerability, and yet they're being almost targeted. Maybe not necessarily targeted, but if they're more vulnerable and they're getting this, and it has that negative effect, that's concerning too. So it sounds like really there's nobody that is safe, if you would, in the government system from these ideologies. No, there's no such thing as a safe space in that regard.
No, there isn't.
No.
And it's important that we are realistic about that.
Yeah.
So, and I really work hard to try to support parents, no matter what educational decision they make, because I understand that one size does not always fit all.
Right.
But, we really are at a crossroads now where we have to, as parents, ask ourselves some really hard questions. And whatever choice we make, it's going to be difficult, and there are going to be challenges. So I much rather, have had the challenges. I homeschooled my children. We did start out using the public school, and then we pivoted to Christian school, and then eventually homeschooling. So I kind of had an experience with all three. And I will tell you that parenting and educating your children, it's just hard work. So,
yes, it is.
If you just accept that,
yep,
say, okay, this is what I'm doing for the next 20 years or 25 years, it kind of simplifies things for you a little bit.
Yep. Absolutely.
It can be freeing though.
Yeah.
To come to that realization.
Right. When you realize this is what God has called me to do. We're going to dig in our heels and we're going to get this done and do it right and do it the best that we can. Yeah. Amen. It's good stuff. One last question for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
What role can the church play to disciple young people through this challenging arena of indoctrination, if you would? How can the church help? Now, I know that, it's been pointed out so many times, 168 hours, I think it is, in the week. One of them is in church usually, right? Maybe two. Three if you're blessed. But for the most part, it's outside of the church. But what can the church do to capitalize on the time that they have to help disciple, particularly young people who are being bombarded with this philosophy and this worldview? What can the church do?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So there's a lot that the church can do. One, a trend that I've seen in the church, and that's very troubling to me, is the removal of Christian education programs in the church. So, so often I'm not seeing Sunday school, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. It was called Sunday school when I was growing up. But Christian education classes are just it's difficult to find them anymore in the church. So we need to really have a focus on Christian education right in the church. The biblical literacy is on the rise. So we need to address that problem. And not just with, Bible stories of Noah's Ark or, Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. So these are important stories, of course, but we really need to teach our young people how to read the scripture, understand the scripture, connect the Old Testament to the New Testament. We need to teach them how to defend their faith, apologetics. I mean, really, church, a pastor should be looking at the full spectrum of ages in his church and saying, what can I do to support the discipleship and Christian education of children? So, and one thing that I think the church can do is there's kind of this balance between making sure you, as a church, you have a robust Christian education program and that you're teaching children and young people, how to understand the scripture and how to apply it to their lives. But we also need to empower parents. See, I think for a long time, we've been under this notion that, the church, that's where the religious professionals are. So the school is where the educational professionals are, and the church is where the religious professionals are. And so we're just farming our kids out to all the experts all the time. I think as parents, we really need to take a step back. No, the Lord puts children in families and gives them to parents. And so it's parents' job, and you said it earlier, to oversee and administrate the education of their children. And sometimes we bring other people into that education, right? But so I would like to see churches and pastors doing more to empower and equip parents to disciple their children. So Christian education is huge. I would also, our youth groups a lot of times focus around fun, and I'm not against fun. I like having fun, right? But I think it's really important nowadays to bring your young people in your church through worldview curriculum. So Summit Ministries puts out they have incredible resources for little ones all the way up through high school. My husband, around our kitchen table, invited other young people in our community to join our family as well, and walked my kids through the Summit Ministries website, understanding the culture, understanding the times, understanding the faith. So this is a really solid curriculum that just goes deep, deep, deep. It doesn't stay away from any topic. It takes it on and says, all right, let's think through this. And now what does the scripture say? And how do these two competing ideas, put them side by side? Let's talk through these issues. So, these are the kinds of really deep and thorough conversations and efforts that need to be made in order to disciple children and to empower parents to disciple their children.
That's fantastic. I love how you say the church needs to not only work on discipleship, but also empowering parents.
Yes.
I know I'm seeing a movement, as well as you guys are in Massachusetts, of just churches that are like, we need to create opportunities for parents to take back the education. I mean, dozens of churches are looking to start some kind of program where they can support homeschools or create a school for the children in their communities and in their church, because they realize how important it is. It's like a revival of Christian education in some regards that's occurring, and I'm happy to see it.
It's wonderful.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think that you've really hit that. I think you really hit that question out of the park, because Sunday school, again, is great, but that's 1 hour a week, right? What about the other 5 days a week that the kids are spending 6 to 8 hours in a school setting? What's shaping the worldview, really, right? What's shaping their philosophy? And I think that as the church begins to say, let's work together to create opportunities for our children to receive an education that will be centered around the scriptures and would be God honoring and uplift Christ. Wow, led of the Spirit. That would be awesome. And I think it's happening. And so hearkening back to what you said before, that's hard work though, right? So,
it is. It's all hard work, right?
Yeah.
So, and I love what you're saying about how churches are stepping up now to provide solutions for education, right? I've been saying this for years. We have so many church buildings that are just empty all week, and they have all of these classrooms. So I would like to, my new motto is, and, my colleague, Michael King, who I work very closely with on these issues and who I know that you've been in close contact with. I said, Michael, we just need to keep saying every church a school, church a school, right? So I just think if we can open up, if we can give families greater access to Christian education, if homeschooling is not an option for them, and there's even ways to, and sometimes there's been this division between Christian schools and homeschools being like in competition with each other.
Right.
Like I'd like to see that go away too.
Amen.
Not every family can homeschool. Lots of families can homeschool, and maybe they should give it a try. Some can't. So we do need solid Christian schools, but I think that can really be a beautiful community where some Christian schools now are opening up their programs to homeschoolers and offering them a la carte options, like they can come and do gym class or art class. And what a wonderful way to just bring together the Christian community, right? And I led educational co-ops and was on the board of our homeschooling group for years in the area where I live. And you wouldn't believe how difficult it was some years for us to find a church to even open up their doors to allow the homeschooling group to have classes there. So many churches were just not even willing to let us use their space. Now, the Lord always provided, and there was always a gracious pastor somewhere who eventually would open up their space and let us use their space. And we were always so grateful. But we had a lot of no's. And so, I would like to see the body of Christ to just really come together and to lock arms together and to support each other in education, in Christian education.
Yeah.
It's happening though. I'm seeing it happen more and more, and it's growing, and it's so encouraging. I want to see more of it.
Yeah, amen. It is encouraging to see the direction that the church is taking, at least right now in our area. And I think it's spreading across the country.
I think it's only going to grow.
I think so. And I think it's vital, and I think it's important, especially when we just spent all this time talking about a purposeful worldview that is intentionally being promoted to the young people. That is in complete antithesis to the things of God, into the Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for parents to step up, and the churches to support. And I think those two things go hand in hand really, really well. And really appreciate you taking the time to share this information with us. Really appreciate you taking the time to elaborate on these things and to encourage us. And again, I want to just remind everybody, go check out Massachusetts Informed Parents on Facebook. Follow it and stay informed, and see the things that are going on, just so that you're aware of them, but also step in and and lead your children to a godly worldview in this regards. And thank you, Mary Ellen, just so much for joining us and for sharing these things.
Oh, yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the good work that you're doing. I encourage parents, if they have any questions about anything that they read or see in the Massachusetts Informed Parents group, that they can email me at massinformedparents@gmail.com.
Awesome. And again, it's been a pleasure to have Mary Ellen Siegler from Massachusetts Family Institute joining us today to discuss these really key and important concepts, and give some great tips and some great advice. It's been good, and I appreciate and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. God bless.